Hello again. Hope everybody's well. And today I'd like to share a short account that was given to me by a deep sea diver. And it's an historic one. I'll keep coming with these historic accounts, but they're no less interesting just because, you know, we're going back quite a lot of years. We're going back to 1979 for this one. And the diver in question explained to me that he was kind of in between jobs. So he formed a partnership with a local fisherman from Flamborough who had a cobble and used to go out looking for shellfish, crabs, lobsters, anything really that could sort of turn a profit for them. And he teamed up with the diver, who I wouldn't say was at a loose end, but he weren't working on oil rigs and he weren't diving from boats and what have you deep into the ocean. So he knows the area. And they're working with this local fisherman, as I've said, and they're catching and collecting lobsters from the seabed. So he goes down, all fully kitted up in the environment of the shellfish and catches lobsters. Comes to the surface, the fisherman retrieves them, puts them in the boat. Great partnership. And no need to put lobster pots out or anything. This diver's doing the job because these things are active on the seabed. Anybody who is familiar with East and North Yorkshire will probably find that it's renowned for what is the best shellfish in the United Kingdom, or it was. I don't know whether it still is. So the fisherman would be waiting on the boat to retrieve the shellfish, and we're going back to September. And on this particular day, he said there'd been a big swell, heavy seas, he said, and the visibility was so poor that it wasn't worth getting kitted up and diving. He wouldn't have seen anything because of the poor visibility. So they decided, based on the knowledge of the local fishermen, to go to Breel Nuke, which is close to King and Queen Rocks in Flamborough. All of these places, all of these locations can be found on maps. They've got some fabulous names, but Breel Nuke. Because of the sea conditions, the local fishermen anticipated that mussels, whelks, winkles may have been ripped up from the seabed and sort of deposited on this, what is an inaccessible beach unless you've got a boat or you know the sea conditions. So they decided to go there. And sure enough, he was right. And what they found, the ocean, the power of the ocean had ripped up large quantities during a storm and large quantities of winkles. And he said that they'd got some fertilizer bags, and I think he said they gathered 20 full fertilizer sacks of these huge, good quality winkles. And he said to me, they sold them at Herman's Pickles in Hull. So after collecting the shellfish and had some sandwiches in this little bay, this little cove, these locations, I mean, they hardly ever get any footfall because you can't really get round to them. The tide conditions are so dangerous and unpredictable that if you went round or if you weren't local to the area and you didn't know, you could easily get cut off and no one would hear you shouting for help in these locations. But just having said that, they're idyllic. They're absolutely pristine, tiny coves. So they sit on some rocks and they're having some sandwiches and tea or coffee, having a break. The diver said it was a crystal clear day, except for one small, unusual oval-shaped cloud just in the sky on its own. And he's not said anything to the fisherman. He's kind of fixed on it. He's used to looking at the skies. He's used to looking at the sea conditions, but this looks odd. Looked like it should be there, really, on this beautiful crystal clear day. And he thinks he can see something glinting inside the cloud. He still doesn't say anything. And then he said from that moment, everything happened really fast. He said, because when I looked again, this shining object shot down from the cloud and hovered just above sea level. couldn't believe what he was seeing. Absolutely. He said it literally just blink of an eye, straight down, didn't enter the sea, just shot above sea level, and it caused a bit of disbursement in the water. I'm imagining it's downward pressure, I don't know, as it came down. Totally silent. All right. He said it stopped for a split second and then just literally just accelerated from 0 to, I don't know, probably in hundreds, if not thousands of miles per hour. I would have said 100 miles an hour, I don't know. And it covered, he estimates, 6 miles in 2 seconds. So if we're good with maths, we can work that one out, I suppose, can't we? Very fast. That's as close as I'll say. He said he could see a small plume of vapor from the spot where it moved away. And I don't mean an exhaust plume. There was just like a displacement of air, a plume. And he asked the fisherman, he said, can you see that? And obviously the fisherman could see the small vapor plume or whatever it was, but he'd not seen the cloud, which had now gone. He'd not seen the object descend. He'd not seen none of that. But blink of an eye, it were over in 2 seconds. But at least he'd got confirmation that he'd seen this plume of strange vapor. So he explained to him what he'd just seen. And I don't mean no disrespect to the fisherman, but he didn't seem that interested. Maybe it's because they've seen things of a similar nature before. I really don't know, but he didn't seem that interested. He described it as being a bright silver-coloured object, he estimates about 2 meters in circumference. It sounds a little bit like the Tic Tac UFO, but we're going back to 1979 with this. Literally dropping straight down, surface at sea and away. They waited for another. He discussed it with his friend for another 4 or 5 minutes. What it could be, what it couldn't have been, and obviously seeing is believing. We've done that one before many times, haven't we? He said, but after 4 or 5 minutes, they heard some jets approaching, and straight over the top of their heads, in the direction of Filey, 2 lightning aircraft was screaming across at about 200 foot up. So I think it's fairly safe to say that somewhere in the world, somewhere on radar, this object had been detected. The jets clearly were there to intercept something. So there we have it. We've got another strange little report, literally off Flamborough Head, of UFO activity. And it kind of makes you wonder. I'm loath to say the words, an alien base, but I've no problem contemplating the possibility that there could be something or some intelligence below the surface of the North Sea. You know, there's so many reports that are coming out from this area of objects leaving the sea, objects going into the sea. And I don't mean on a weekly basis, but I'm on about over decades and decades and decades. I've already started my next book, which will be titled The Sub-Universe, the Submersed Universe, because, you know, we've got so many people talking about distant galaxies and distant planets, and these beings, these ultra intelligent beings are probably residing off planet. I can't say whether they are or they aren't, but as I've said many times before, when we've only got, say, 5% of the world's oceans actually charted and discovered, and then you know you've got 90 to 95% that we know virtually nothing about, then I think there's a good chance that something could be residing in the sub-universe, the submersed universe. Remember where you heard it first. And if you like what we're doing, please feel free to like and subscribe. If you've got any content that you want me to talk about in the future, or you want to share with me for a future book, feel free to contact me at paulsinclairilf@gmail.com. The Truth Proof books, which are here, can be obtained from the website truthproof.uk, and the Kindle versions of the books are obviously available on Amazon. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed.